I am Dr. Adam Millman. Thank you for watching. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that though we travel the world over to find the beautiful, we must carry it with us or we find it not. What that means is that if we go looking for happiness, if we go looking for joy outside of us through the acquisition of material things, a new car, more money, a promotion, a new job, a house, a vacation, a new girlfriend, a new spouse, boyfriend, a husband, if we think that will bring us happiness, it will not. The happiness comes from within us. The happiness comes from realizing that there's enough to be happy about, joyful about with what you have in your situation most of the time without acquiring new things. And that if we think that we will be happy when we get something in the future, this is fraught with danger and disappointment. Because the only reality that we have and that we will ever have is what we have in the here and now, in this moment. Not in the future, not what we think is going to come and might bring us happiness. The future may never come. And the future things that we think that we were going to get that will bring us happiness may never come. And then if we get them, it may not even make us feel the way we want it to make us feel. And if it does, it may only be short-lived, and then we'll want something else. The true happiness is when you can be happy with what you have in pursuit of something in the future that you want, a worthy goal. For sure, you shouldn't just be happy with you should be happy with what you have, but it shouldn't stifle your goals for something more. But the ability to be happy with what you have in the moment, with everything around you, everyone around you, your situation, is where you can get the true happiness. This idea that more will bring you happiness, more happiness, may not be true. So in this sense, I want to speak with you about a text that we read every Festival of Tabernacles, also called Sukkot in Hebrew. We read it on the Sabbath that occurs during this holiday of Sukkot, also called the Festival of Tabernacles. It is the book of Ecclesiastes, also called Koheles. Now, you don't have to be a believer in the Bible, you don't have to be interested in Judaism or Christianity, but most people would agree that this book, Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon, probably represents one of, if not the first existential text ever written. It is something that you could see being written after the destruction of Europe after the Second World War, a book that would be next to something by Jean-Paul Sartre or Albert Camus or Simone de Beauvoir, or two generations before by something that next to a book that Friedrich Nietzsche would write about the meaninglessness of life and how there's no purpose and everything is terrible and we're all going to die and it's better that you would never have even been born. And this text is as Rabbi Sachs, the former chief rabbi of England before his death, described it as the most thorough, intense, existential inquiry into human mortality ever written. Second maybe would be Tolstoy's Confessions. But this book really deals with the idea of death, the coming death for everybody, and then what do you do about it? How do you find meaning? How do you find purpose when you know that you're going to die? Well, the thing that King Solomon does in the book, he describes himself as being the richest king in Jerusalem, and he acquired more houses and more pools and money and horses and wealth than any king before him, and yet he realized it was meaningless. In the second verse of this book, he says the word meaningless 5 times. In the whole book, it's mentioned 38 times, and it's actually a very short book. The word in Hebrew is hevel. Rabbi Sachs says that this should probably better be translated as a fleeting breath rather than meaninglessness. Instead of Solomon saying life is meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless, I realized after I had built this and I acquired this and I had more money and I had more horses and more houses and built more pools and vineyards than anyone, I realized it was meaningless. Rabbi Sachs says that you should probably translate the word not as meaningless, but as a fleeting breath or a shallow breath. A prayer book that he wrote in 2005, he translates it as a fleeting breath or a shallow breath. So instead of saying life is meaningless, meaningless, he says you should read it as life is a shallow breath, a fleeting breath. And isn't it true? Isn't that the way life actually is? Life is brief, life is short, life is fragile. It's a shallow breath. In my field of work, internal medicine, we have patients die unexpectedly, most of the time expectedly, but it comes, someone is healthy, they're doing fine, and then their life is snatched away from them. And this is the way life is. This is the way we have to understand our time on this earth is short. Even at the longest, it's brief. 79 years, 80 years, 82 years. Life is very brief. And when you consider in the course of the entire existence of the universe, we make up a very, very, very small part of it. So when you think about how life is brief and short, what some people try to do, and that it's fraught with often with suffering and pain and adversity and loss. And what do we do about it? Well, one of the strategies, and this idea was made famous by one of Sigmund Freud's main pupils. His name was Otto Rank, and then his ideas were put forth in 1973 in a famous book called The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker in 1973. He actually won the Pulitzer Prize for it. And he says that we are obsessed with the anxiety and fear of death. They both say the same thing. We're obsessed with the fear and anxiety of death, and we do things to try to outlive our own mortality. And that can mean acquiring a lot of money, building institutions, houses, acquiring things, trying to build things that will be here, that will outlive us after we die. But yet we still die. So even though we try to acquire things in hopes of outliving our own mortality, we can't take any of these things with us. If we build up a lot of wealth and we give it to our children, maybe our children squander it. If we have a lot of power, that power disappears. We could write books while we're alive and maybe nobody reads them. The Rabbi Sachs says we can write many books when we're alive. Maybe nobody reads the books after we die. So we do things to try to prevent our own mortality, trying to outlive our own death, but we can't do it. So then what do? Well, King Solomon says later on that the only thing we can do is be happy in the moment. This is called joy. The word joy in Hebrew comes from the root same. And in the first book of Genesis, the word appears one time. In the next book, Exodus, it appears one time. In Leviticus, one time. In the book of Numbers, it appears one time. And then it appears 12 times in the book of Deuteronomy, for a total of 16 times in the first 5 books of the Bible, the first 5 books of Moses. And the word appears 18 times in the book of Ecclesiastes, which is a very short book. So the book that seems to be very, very sad actually has the word for joy appearing 18 times, the most times, but then also has the word for meaninglessness, or as Rabbi Sachs says, a fleeting breath. That appears 38 times. So what seems to be the saddest book also mentions the word for joy the most times. Compared to the first 5 books of the Bible, the first 5 books of Moses, we often call it. So what does Solomon do to get rid of this existential vexation that he has knowing that he's going to die? He realizes is that you need to be happy with what you have in the moment. To love the wife, to love the woman that you're married to love the wife that you're with, to be happy in the moment, to eat and drink and now and be joyful, because tomorrow you may die. Tomorrow eventually all of us will die, but tomorrow you could die. So to be joyful in what we have now. He uses the word joy, same, is something in the moment, whereas happiness is a different word in Hebrew, and that has to do with over the course of your whole life. Happiness, maybe you'll know at the end of your life if you had a happy life, but joy has to do with the here and now, in this second. The goal is to be joyful in what you have, rather than constantly in the pursuit of something else and trying to build institutions and to acquire things that you think will make you joyful, when in reality the only joy that you should be focused on is what you have this second. Because this current situation that you have now is the future of 5 years ago. And what you do now, the future 5 years from now may never come. But what you have now and what your experience is this second, and with your life that you're living now, is the future of 5 years ago. So be focused on what you have in the moment, the joy that you have in this moment with everything that's around you. And this is the way that you can defeat the existential angst of the book of Ecclesiastes and the knowledge of your future death. You can't acquire your way out of it. You can't acquire things that will get you out of your own death in the future. Even if you're the richest man, the richest king in Jerusalem, with all the things that you've acquired, you're still going to die. And there's nothing you can do about it, except you can be joyful in what you have in the moment, joyful in what you have now, in pursuit maybe of something in the future, but realizing it may never come and that it may not bring you joy, but to be joyful in what you have. The simple pleasures, like loving the woman that you're with or the man that you're with, the experiences that you have now, everything that you have around you, the blessings that you have, the gratitude that you have, that living in the moment, this second, here and now, is the way to overcome the future knowledge of death. And that is the solution. That is a solution that Solomon realizes almost 3,000 years ago, and the solution that we should realize now. It is not through getting things. That is not the way to do it. It is the joy that you have in this moment and everything that's available in this moment. Thank you very much for watching.